Hi, this is Chatterboxing, and I'm going to do something different here today. I've got one of my subscribers with me, who's a regular contributor to my channel. We're going to discuss a couple of upcoming fights. Going to talk about Anthony Joshua against Wladimir Klitschko, and we're also going to talk about Canelo Alvarez against Billy Joe Saunders. So yeah, his name's Sean, like me. So shout out to all the Seans out there as well, repping today. So Sean, welcome to this new uh, podcast, I suppose you call it. How's it
Yeah,
going?
yeah, it's going good. Please be part of it. As I said, yeah, I'm a subscriber that's watched many of your videos. Quite enjoyed quite a few of them. That's why I got in touch. I thought that I could possibly provide some entertainment for the viewers and be able to bounce back and forth with you regarding certain fights. And with regards to the fights that are coming up in 2017, I think that we've got quite a lot to go into
Yeah,
really. So yeah,
absolutely.
if you want to kick off with Klitschko versus Joshua, then by all means go ahead. And yeah,
Yeah.
I'll have plenty to say about it.
All right. Well, first thing I would say is it's a very difficult one to predict because there are so many things that we don't really know. I mean, Klitschko, when they make the fight, he will have been out for what, 18 months? Is it? Something like that. And he'll
Roughly.
also be, yeah, he'll also be like 41 years old. He said that's going to be a good thing for him. It's a possibility because he could be a bit rejuvenated, but at the same time, it could also be a bad thing because he's coming off a loss. He's been around a long time. He got injured the last time, so he's obviously had a bit of wear and tear on him.
Yeah.
So that's we don't really know how good he's going to be. In terms of Joshua, I mean, in his whole career, I mean, I've watched I think all his fights, and in my opinion, he's had two opponents who've actually tried to win: Dominic Brazil and Dylan White.
Yeah. Agreed.
So we know we know he's good. We know he's fucking hard puncher. He's got good technique. We know we've seen him when he's on top, but we haven't really seen him, in deep waters. We haven't seen him in the later rounds. We haven't seen him fight with someone with the skill and the experience of Klitschko. So many unknowns for me that it's very interesting. What do you think about it?
Well, the thing is, the way I see it, what's very interesting about the fight is Joshua, first and foremost, hasn't fought anyone that is the same size as him. And as Vladimir Klitschko, in an interview that I saw recently, pointed out, they're the same size, they've got the same reach. Um, Muscularly, obviously, I'd say Joshua's probably the slightly bigger man, but it doesn't necessarily make a difference at that sort of weight. If one clips the other, then
Yeah,
you know
they're
one
both
person's going to go down. I think
two
what's
big, strong, powerful guys, aren't they?
yeah, well, they're two big knockout artists. Apart from the fact that Anthony Joshua's got 100% knockout record, and he's 18 for 0. But then you've got Klitschko, who has had close to 70 fights. I think he's like 64 for 4 or something like that on BoxRec
Ridiculous.
the last time
Yeah.
I checked. So Klitschko's fought a lot of fights, but as we saw in the last fight, the thing about Klitschko is that he fought against a taller man, which he hasn't done well in his career. From what I can see, I can't think of many fights where he's fought a taller man with a longer reach, and you could see
No.
how Tyson Fury really exposed that. Whereas with Joshua, they're completely equal, and I can either see Joshua possibly getting his ears boxed off if Klitschko's on his game. As you said, he's 41. Will he be able to do that? I don't know. But you know, Vladimir Klitschko on his night, his jab is absolutely lethal. And then you've got Joshua,
Yeah.
who has got the potential just to knock one on his chin. And then,
Yeah.
I could see Joshua blowing him away. But I, at the same time, I wouldn't sit there and say that Joshua's a favourite for that reason. And I couldn't put Vladimir Klitschko as a favourite after seeing his last fight against Tyson Fury because he looked far past his prime. So I don't know.
Yeah.
That's where I'm standing.
He kind of did, but I reckon stylistically that was always going to be a tough fight for him
Mm.
because, as you say, like Tyson Fury was taller than him. He hadn't fought anyone taller than him. He fought a few people, even really his own size, a few people.
Yeah.
And Tyson Fury, not only is he tall, but he's really awkward. He switched southpaw as well, which really threw him off. He had great head movement, upper body movement, kind of switching in between punches, just confused him. And I think that was an ongoing theme because throughout the build-up, he was confusing him. 1 minute he was basically kicking off, next minute he was like shaking his hand. All right, lad, how's it going, mate? Turning up dressed as Batman. He just didn't know. He didn't know what he was going to do next. And then he continued that in the ring, like switching southpaw, putting his hands behind his back, getting in his face. Just, do you know what I mean? I think that confused Vlad completely, and that for him was his sort of kryptonite. Anthony Joshua is not very predictable, but he's a completely different personality for starters. He's not like Tyson Fury. Is very different from Vlad. He would consider him quite sort of uncouth, quite basically just a bit of a scally. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Whereas Anthony Joshua is a bit more of a gentleman, and he would sit there quite respectful, quite similar in that respect.
Yeah.
And then when he gets in the ring, he kind of knows what to expect. He's just going to do a demolition job on you. So I think that for Vlad is going to make a big difference. The fact that he's going to be a lot more predictable for him.
Yeah.
Not saying there aren't other things that he's got to be concerned about, because obviously he's been knocked out before, and you could, if he's there in front of like 90,000 like pissed up English louts, like baying for his blood, and he's getting like smacked in the mouth by Anthony Joshua, I could see him panicking and just thinking like, whoa, what am I doing here? This isn't like some short fat bloke I can just lean on and bore my way to a 12-round decision.
And jab straight through it. Yeah, I totally agree.
Yeah.
But I think the thing to point out here as well is the fact that I think that both are very fearful of each other, and rightfully so, obviously. Like as far as Anthony Joshua goes, like every guy that I've seen him look at face to face, you can kind of see it like perceptively that he knows that he's gonna literally just storm through him, and at some point he's just gonna like just put some form of demolition upon the man. But when you've seen him in front of Wladimir Klitschko, and a few other people have said this, I think that's what's put it in my mind, because I've seen a few people say he looks less confident than he has done. But in my eyes, despite other people saying it, I don't think that it's necessarily their influence that's made me think it. I think it's also hearing that and actually believing that myself as well. Like, I think he looks a lot less confident. And that's probably because he's coming up against a very formidable opponent.
Of course. So he should. Yeah. Do you know what I mean? He shouldn't be going in there thinking, "Oh, I'm fighting against some British level, out of shape heavyweight." I mean, this is like been the best on the planet for years. I mean, he lost to Fury, but it wasn't like he got battered or he got knocked out. Or, do you know what I mean? He lost a 12-round. I mean, he clearly lost the fight, but it wasn't a complete physical beatdown, was it? He got pretty much outsmarted, and stylistically, he was beaten.
Yeah, I mean that wasn't what Fury was going for though. He wasn't going for the knockout, was he? He was always going. They had a game plan, and Fury was there to essentially use his height and reach, and he knew that Vlad wasn't used to something like that. So that's what happened that night. That's another point I wanted to make. Like before that fight, me and my mates all sat down and paid for the pay-per-view, and we had a couple of beers, and I'm probably the most hardcore boxing fan out of the whole lot of them. And they said, "Who do you think's going to win the fight?" And I said, "I just don't see how Fury's going to win, because when you looked at Fury's resume beforehand, he hadn't really fought anyone at world level. Like, who were his biggest wins? It was like Derek Chisora.
I'd say Steve Cunningham was a good win.
Yeah,
I know people are going to say
knocked him down. I remember that. Yeah,
he did, but that was a kind of, he just basically just walked straight with no respect for him, and he fought a completely different fight. One of the things with Fury, he's very versatile.
Yeah.
So he can kind of, like, he didn't do that with Wladimir Klitschko, did he? He wouldn't be doing that with Deontay Wilder or Anthony Joshua, someone like that. He had no respect for Steve Cunningham, and he paid the price. And also Steve Cunningham was very quick, and he's able to land those kind of punches. He put all those things together, and he got knocked down. You could say Steve Cunningham, he was a cruiserweight, wasn't he?
I was about to just add that in. He was, yes.
I rate Steve Cunningham pretty highly, especially back then. Yeah. So the size advantage was too much for him, but to me that was a good win in America as well. And obviously, as we know, Peter Fury couldn't go to America, so he was there with his like assistant trainer, which obviously didn't help. So yeah, I actually did pick Fury to win. I thought that Vladimir Klitschko had a puncher's chance, but I didn't think. Yeah, I thought stylistically Fury would beat him.
Yeah, see, a lot of
This one,
a lot of the people I know, a lot of the hardcore boxing fans actually did pick Fury as well. But in my heart of heart, I sat there and thought if I had to put money down or a lot of money down on who was going to win, I really thought Klitschko was going to do it. But
yeah,
um,
yeah.
I was glad to
I
see
mean
it
that,
as being a Brit. I was glad to see that I was wrong. Obviously afterwards, I thought it was absolutely perfect. I mean,
yeah,
Fury boxed the fight. Like a lot of people said, it was a boring fight. And for me, it was anything but a boring fight. You got to see
yeah,
a
yeah. I mean,
champion of 11 years get schooled, get absolutely
yeah,
schooled by a guy of what
and it,
26 fights or something. You know,
and it
like,
was very tense as well. I mean, it wasn't the most action-packed fight, but and for me, it was entertaining. I mean, it wasn't everybody's cup of tea. Obviously, it's not the kind of fight you'd watch back loads of times,
no,
but when you're watching it in the moment, to me, it was pretty good. So, okay, with Joshua, um, it's difficult to say. It's difficult to really see him losing, isn't it, to someone? And from what you've seen, unless they're a really good mover, because you're talking like Vladimir Klitschko moves quite well, but he's not going to be. He's no Malik Scott or even Tyson Fury.
yeah.
So you'd think at some point these two are going to have to meet pretty much head on. So doing that with either of these two is, I don't know, it's going to be. I can't see it going 12 rounds unless Vladimir Klitschko really pulls off a very, just totally controls it at his pace.
Which is
And then
which sorry to interrupt. I think
that's fine.
is definitely plausible. I think that could definitely happen. The thing that you also need to point out is the fact that we actually haven't seen much technical boxing skills from Anthony Joshua thus far. I mean, he doesn't look bad, but technically Vladimir Klitschko, you've got to say, has got the advantage. Joshua is just, in my eyes, and thus far in his career, a powerhouse. And how he's won his fights, essentially,
Yeah,
is just by being a big, strong beast and just knocking
yeah.
people out. And fair play to him. It's worked for him thus far. But
I mean,
this. Say that again. Sorry.
he hasn't needed he hasn't needed to show anything else, has he? I mean, just because he hasn't done it up to now doesn't
No.
mean he can't do it.
No.
I mean, he's not going to like go on a turn into I don't know fight like Paulie Malignaggi when he's fighting against Jason Gavin, is he? Do
Yeah.
you know what I mean?
Yeah. Well,
So,
you're right. There's nothing. There's no reason that Joshua needs to necessarily change, but um, he's fighting against one of the best jabbers in boxing, and
yeah,
I'm really interested to see how he deals with that because I don't think when it comes to point scoring, Joshua really can beat Klitschko. I think he needs to just connect one on the chin, and as soon as he
that's a
does
good
that,
point.
then he'll take him out. I think that's how Joshua knows he's going to win. I think that's why he's taking the fight, and obviously they're both
Yeah,
earning a lot of money from this fight. This is going to generate hundreds
yeah.
of
Well,
thousands of
that's
pay-per-view views, like buyers. Sorry.
that's a good point you just mentioned because so far, Anthony Joshua he's never learned really to win rounds, has he? Because
He's
that's
never had
never
to.
been his objective.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's literally gone in there just thinking, right, I'm going to knock you out, which is good, which is fine. But potentially it could be his undoing against someone like Vladimir Klitschko, who obviously he's been in there with very dangerous people like Samuel Peter, David Hay, Povetkin, loads of people, loads of big punchers over the years. And I mean, he's been knocked out a couple of times when he was like quite a long time ago. But he's very good at surviving, and he's very good at doing enough to win rounds. Anthony Joshua, from what I can remember, has never really focused on winning a round as a as an objective. I mean, he may have won round when he has won rounds along the way, but he's just gone out there to take your head off, and presumably that's what he's going to do in this fight.
Yeah.
But easier said than done, isn't it?
Yeah. I mean,
Right?
I think the main thing is how does Klitschko, like he has in his previous fights that he's won quite convincingly against the likes of Pulev, etc. Because Anthony Joshua is his same height and they've got the same reach, etc., etc. Will that put Klitschko in a comfortable enough position that he can display his boxing skills as well as he has done in the past? It's a question that we're obviously going to find out on fight night, but I think that's pretty much what it comes down to, really. Like, does Klitschko jab Joshua's face off, or does it come
Yeah,
down to Joshua knocking Klitschko out in round 6 or 7, possibly
yeah,
before, because it's Anthony Joshua. But you
yeah.
know, Klitschko's not going to be
Well,
there to get hit early, definitely. Right,
one concern for me for Anthony Joshua is he doesn't really move his head. He doesn't really move his upper body at all.
agreed.
Like he does like slip quite well. He's got like he did with Charles Martin, just a little slip, boom, like typical slips to the left and then comes with a straight right hand counter. He does that pretty well, but I don't know if that's going to put Klitschko off and break his rhythm. Because if he gets into his rhythm of jabbing, then it's very difficult to get him out of it. Do you know what I mean? So Tyson Fury managed to do that. Firstly, because he had the reach advantage, but also just constantly moving his head, switching stances, dipping his shoulders. He just never really it was never a still target, which Joshua, from what I've seen, pretty much is. He just
Is
relies on like sort of reacting,
yeah,
which is fine. But it's one thing reacting to Dominic Brazil. It's another thing reacting to Vladimir Klitschko.
yeah. I mean, you look at Dominic Brazil when we came into the last fight. Like, don't get me wrong, I thought he showed a lot of heart, had a really good chin,
Yeah,
but he went into the fight with man boobs, and he wasn't really
yeah,
in necessarily great shape. Klitschko's
yeah.
going to go into this fight. Klitschko's a natural athlete, and he's going to be in
Tip
form.
top
He's going to
condition.
be in form to fight Anthony Joshua. Put it that way. Like there's no
What?
chance both of these
This
fighters are going to go in any sort of bad shape, and
is a
that's
question.
well.
Is is a question for you. Who's going to be hungrier going into this one?
I think that's an unanswerable question because you've got someone you've got Vladimir Klitschko who's got a legacy that he's trying to
Yeah,
prove. And if he loses this fight, then I can easily see retirement coming straight afterwards because
yeah.
that's often what happens with great fighters. They'll lose their last 2 fights and decide that if they lose the third, then it will make them look much worse. I think the same happened with Ricky Hatton, didn't it? He lost his last 2 fights, decided
Yeah.
to retire. So if Klitschko was to lose, that's easy retirement. So he's got that on his mind. So he's going to be very hungry. If his game plan doesn't go to plan, he'll get desperate towards the end of the fight and he'll start doing some silly stuff, which I think for the fans would be great.
I
Joshua,
don't. I don't think he'll do that. I don't think that's in his makeup.
he's but if if he knows he's losing the fight, hopefully for the fans, like it's his legacy. Hopefully he'll
I
come
just think
swinging. But
it, I just reckon he'd rather lose on points than get knocked out.
I on recollection, now you're saying that, I think you're probably right, actually.
I mean,
But
I'm sure he won't going into the ring. I'm sure like he'd like to convince himself that's not the case, and he's very, very driven. I mean, he used the word obsessed with getting his title back and his name back, basically.
yeah,
But I think when push comes to shove and he's in there and he's got Anthony Joshua in the ring with him, I don't think he's losing. I think he's like, yeah, I don't really need getting knocked out by this bloke.
as
Do
my
you know what I think?
last part of my resume. Yeah, maybe not. Now you said that, I think you made a good point. And then obviously to answer the other side of your question, you've got Anthony Joshua, who's got the champion of 11 years, bar Tyson
Mm.
Fury beating him, to beat. And I think as long as AJ's got the right mentality, I can see him coming through the fight. Really, I can see him as long as if he hits him once, you see AJ like he's basically got the hardest punch in the game in my eyes. Like
Yeah, and he's got like combinations as well, and he's got a real vicious streak about him. He gets in there and he'll just unload on you. And yeah, I don't know if Vladimir Klitschko is going to be able to take that. I mean, like, well, he definitely won't be able to take it. Whether case he can avoid it. One thing I would say, I don't think people in or outside of the UK realise that the pressure that Anthony Joshua has had to deal with from very early on in his career. I mean, this is obviously a big step up in terms of the stage, the pressure, and all that. But he was headlining shows from like 5, 6 fights
yeah,
in front of like big crowds. You had Eddie Hearn saying he was like the best heavyweight, better than Lennox Lewis, and he'd beat like Mike Tyson, George Foreman, and Muhammad Ali on the same night. Madness. Just coming out with like just really hyping him up, and he had this real. I mean, he's by far the most popular fighter in the UK at the moment, and this has been from very early on in his career. He won obviously the gold medal in London, so he's already a kind of national hero, and I think he's quite well prepared for this level of pressure, more than your average fighter would have been.
Yeah,
So I think that's worth considering as well for people who are thinking, "Oh, this is just going to be too much for him."
yeah. I mean, for me, I think Anthony Joshua, yeah, certainly doesn't seem to be the sort of person that actually buckles under pressure, and pressure doesn't seem
No,
like it hits him like it might hit certain other boxers that we've seen in the past. I mean, I think he handles it very well, and I think you're totally right in saying that.
he, se- he seems very, very. I mean, I don't want to sort of kiss his ass too much, but he seems very wise as well for his age. If you listen to him talk, I heard some people say, "Ah, he's been coached what to say." I don't think so. To me, he just sounds like he's quite focused on what he's doing. He understands the opportunity that he has, and he also understands what kind of work he has to put in. He doesn't get carried away. He doesn't start listening to Eddie Hearn, like kind of singing his praises every time he has a shit. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah,
I think he's for his age, he's got the sort of physical advantage of being like the age that he is, but he's got a very kind of old head on a young pair of shoulders.
yeah.
From what I can,
I mean, I think where you got.
if you got
Sorry, what were you going to say there, Sean?
no, no, because I was just going to say, have you made your prediction yet? But if you've got something else to say that first.
No, I was gonna say. I mean, kudos for Anthony Joshua actually taking the fight. To be
Oh
fair,
yeah,
I mean,
and
he
Klitschko
could
as well.
easily. This is what I'm saying against Klitschko. He could easily have gone through a couple of other opponents that I could mention, but I'm not going to bother. Like he could have easily
Yeah,
had another 2, 3 fights before he'd take
yeah,
on the likes of Deontay Wilder, Vladimir Klitschko, or obviously Fury when he comes back. But the fight presented itself, and he's taken it. And if I'm going to go to predictions now, I hate making predictions because when you're wrong, you
yeah,
sit there and you think back and you think, why did I make that prediction when this has just happened? But I'm actually going to predict that Anthony Joshua is going to knock Klitschko out. And earlier, before we'd actually chatted about this, I was sitting there thinking, well, there's always a possibility that Klitschko is going to box. He's going to jab Joshua's face off. But as far as Joshua's records goes, like I mean, his resume is nowhere near anything close to Klitschko's. But Klitschko is what, like you said, 41, and
yeah,
we've got a young beast in Anthony Joshua, and as soon as he lands a good fist on Klitschko, then he's going to attack him and he's going to look to put him out, and he's
yeah.
relentless. So prediction wise, I'm going to say Anthony Joshua by KO, anything between round 3 and round 8, and I can't make a better prediction than that. I don't think.
Yeah, well, that's to be honest. I'm going for Anthony Joshua as well. I just think Klitschko, as good as he is and as good as he has been, I think he's kind of used to having everything his own way for a while.
Mm.
When Tyson Fury and that just turned up there and sort of turned everything on its head, he didn't like it and he didn't react very well. Now, obviously, this isn't the same thing, but at the same time, he's not going to be in Germany choosing everything, putting snidey little stuff underneath the ring to give himself an advantage.
Yeah,
Control it. I mean, that was a disgrace. I don't get too much into that now. It'd take up too much time. But all this kind of stuff that I don't like about Klitschko. This time he's in Anthony Joshua's house. He's going to have 90,000 fans against him. He's going to realise that he's there not with everything on his terms, and he is there basically everyone to see him get beaten up, not the other way around, not to see him beat up some overmatched fat American.
mm.
Do you know what I mean? Or the sort of typical opponent that he fights. So I think that could play against him. And then just the momentum that Anthony Joshua has behind him, and I just think the potential. I just think we haven't seen that much from him aside from what we have seen, but we haven't needed to see anything else. And I just think, of course, Vladimir Klitschko could knock him out. He could outbox him. Great insight there, obviously from me. But do you know what I mean? I think the most likely outcome, all things considered, at this moment in time, is that Anthony Joshua wins by knockout, and I very much hope so.
Yeah,
I do. Listen, I have a go at Vladimir Klitschko because all this stuff behind the scenes. But of course, I respect him, and I've given him a lot of credit for taking this fight as well. He's like 41 years old, and he's coming over to face Anthony Joshua in London. You've got to take your hat off to him. I mean, the bloke's still taking on big challenges at that time. Do you know what I mean? You've got to like really take your hat off to him. But I'm going for Joshua.
yeah.
So we're agreed on that one.
I think yeah, we have agreed on that one. But come fight night, I think as just
It could
a
change.
last note,
It could change.
I think the first 3 rounds will dictate how Joshua fights the fight, and if Joshua is, I think if Klitschko establishes himself as the better fighter in the earlier rounds, that is how we're going to know how the fight's going to end, possibly.
Yeah.
But if it's
If he lands some
tit
big,
for tat, sorry, if it's tit for tat in the first couple of rounds, I think Joshua, yeah, is going to knock him out. But if Klitschko goes 10-9, 10-9, 10-9, then I don't know what sort of fight we're going to see. I couldn't predict it from there. But yeah, agreed.
It's one last thing I just want to say that I've predicted that Joshua is going to win, but there is a possibility because we said earlier about him headlining shows early, and that he's being rushed into this, and his whole career has been rushed, and kind of Eddie Hearn just jumping the gun a bit. This could be a step too far too early, definitely. If you look at some of the stuff that Eddie Hearn has done, some of the fights he's made, where he's putting Bellew in with David Haye, he put Brook in with Golovkin. There's other examples. He's not the most intelligent, what's the word I'm looking for? What's the word? Matchmaker that we've ever seen.
Yeah,
he's not very cautious. He's a very he loves taking risks. Could it be that he's sort of, this is a bit short-sighted on his part? I don't know.
Have you seen Eddie Hearn's wallet? That's one thing I'd ask you when they say that. I mean, all of these risks that Eddie Hearn takes, he actually makes a lot of money off of. So
I mean, he puts people in. Eddie Hearn, like he's saying, it's a good idea to do this. Possibly it isn't a good idea, but Eddie Hearn's just kind of blinded by the money and the glory and the hype and the fame. Do you know what I mean? He's just doing stuff that really he shouldn't be doing yet. But all right, well, let's move on then. Let's talk about Billy Joe Saunders against Canelo. I actually made a video about this a couple of days ago, so I'll let you start off. What's your reaction to this fight? Being it hasn't been signed yet, but it's going to happen, isn't it?
It seems like it's going to happen, and for Canelo, obviously the whole moving up to middleweight thing. It seems like what Golden Boy is. It's Golden Boy, right? It seems like they want him. Is what they want him to do. The thing about this fight the only thing that disturbs me is the fact that Saunders' resume is nowhere close to that of Canelo's. But where I say there's a but, for all the American fans that might possibly watch this video and follow the channel, they will all think that Canelo is going to steamroll Saunders, but Canelo's never fought someone as tall with as long a reach. As he's never fought a natural middleweight in my eyes, and he's never fought someone who's slick as Billy Joe Saunders. And Saunders on his night is an absolutely fantastic, incredible fighter. I mean, we didn't see that in his last fight, but I think, like you pointed out, in his last fight, he fought a fighter that actually, with all due respect, was actually went there to win, and he wasn't messing about, and he was in tip-top shape. So
and he was good. I mean, that's why I made the point in the video about names rather than what people see. Because if you let's say you didn't understand English and you didn't know like names of anyone, and you just saw like put this person in and you put this person, and you watch these two fights, you could just think, yeah, that bloke is good. Looking at his technique, looking at his punch variety, looking at all the stuff he can do, and this you'd say this one's better. But straight away you put a name on him, and people are just like, oh yeah, he's really good. Now I'm not saying it doesn't come from anywhere. That people generally have names for a reason.
Yeah.
But if someone comes from who is it, Russia? I mean, how much do we don't follow like Russia? I mean, I don't. I don't know anything about Russian boxing.
Yeah. Exactly the
So
same.
I don't know who he is. I don't know who he's beaten, and I don't know who they are. But what could when I saw him in there, I thought this bloke is actually pretty decent. He's no mug. I mean, he's got good technique. He's good footwork. He's strong. He's got good engine on him. Billy Joe Saunders has been out for a year. Um, Out for a year, probably drinking, probably eating too much, lounging around. Put on excessive weight. Very not sharp at all. He's gone in there now against a pretty live opponent. I mean, not the best in the world, but if you're looking at that and thinking, oh, now he's just a complete bum because of that, then you're deluded.
You're totally wrong, and that's where I totally agree. The thing about Billy Joe Saunders is people abroad, especially in America, they won't have followed him throughout his career, which I very much have done. He's had a massive amateur background. He did well in the Olympics. Did he get
Yep.
Olympic bronze or Olympic gold? I
I think he
can't
got
quite
bronze. Yeah,
He got
I think he
bronze.
did.
And he's won every fight so far, and he's won every fight in my eyes quite convincingly. I mean, a lot of people thought the Eubank Junior fight was close. I didn't. I really thought it was either. I thought it was 8-4 in my eyes, and Eubank only
Yeah,
came in the last couple of rounds. And the problem with what people abroad might see, I think where they might not rate Billy Joe Saunders that much, is the fact that his resume is restricted to the point that yeah, he's beat Andy Lee, but all he's beaten is Andy Lee and Chris Eubank Jr. And he beat a Chris Eubank Jr. that wasn't quite ready to fight him, unfortunately. And then you can go back and you can look at Nick Blackwell and John Ryder and Spike O'Sullivan, but they're all domestic level fighters.
yeah, but if you see the sort of progression of it, he progressed quite well, and he sort of, as he went along, he stepped up like quite nicely. I think they did it quite well. And the
Mm.
other bloke as well, the Australian one, he knocked out in a couple of rounds. I can't remember his name,
I can't think of the
but
top of my
anyway,
head.
I think Danny Jacobs. He fought Danny Jacobs as well. And yeah, I mean, not amazing record, but still pretty decent. If you look at Canelo, for me, yeah, he's got a good record, but I do think it's sort of blown out of proportion. I mean, if you really go through it, first of all, people seem to give him credit for getting schooled by Mayweather. I don't really understand that. I could go in there and get schooled by Mayweather. There's nothing impressive about that for me.
Yeah,
Then
it
he
was
fought.
it was early on in his career.
Yeah, but I'm saying people talk about that as if somehow he deserves credit for being dominated and like losing every round in a 12-round fight.
Yeah,
Do you know what I mean? That to me, there's nothing to be impressed by. I mean, he's got a couple like Shane Mosley, who's obviously good, but he was too small, too old. Cotto, yeah, you got to give him some credit for it, but again, he's always got a big advantage on people. He's always bigger, younger. Um, I haven't really seen him in that many, what I would say like 50-55. I mean, yeah, Lara, I suppose. That I kind of compared him slightly to Billy Joe Saunders. He's a southpaw.
mm,
He's slick. He's very, very negative. He just doesn't do anything. He's just a spoiler, really. And he threw that fight away. And some people even thought that he won.
yeah. A lot of
Well,
people did think he won. I was
yeah.
about to add that
So I
in.
think Billy
Yeah,
Joe Saunders, he could definitely emulate that. There are certain similarities, but he's a bit more. First of all, he's a bit bigger, and secondly, he's just a lot more game. He's not gamer. He'll get in there and he'll hit you back. He's not just going to be like Lara just on his bike the whole time.
yeah. I mean, yeah. I think he's totally right. I mean, the way Billy Joe Saunders moves, I think, is definitely all wrong for Canelo. The way Billy Joe Saunders has obviously spoken in interviews, he knows that Canelo is a much better choice um, win-wise than obviously Gennady Golovkin, who
Oh yeah,
I think would beat the crap out of him and Chris Eubank Jr. and any other middleweight that wants to come towards him. I think Gennady Golovkin, despite not having, in my eyes, he still hasn't beaten a necessarily like absolutely world class opponent, and you can argue that as much as you like. I mean, like David
yeah,
Lemieux as an example was Is that possibly his best win, David Lemieux?
Yeah, or Martin Murray, I suppose.
Martin Murray. Yeah, he hasn't really like you know like
No, but it's the way he's done it, isn't it? I mean, he's beaten a lot of like kind of top 10 kind of people. I mean, he basically, for me, he beat Billy Joe Saunders. Not easily, because Billy Joe Saunders would. I can't see Billy Joe Saunders surviving 12 rounds. He just have
no
to get
way.
on his body. Sooner or later, he's gonna get knocked out, stopped.
I totally agree.
Canelo is like Canelo. I mean, who would who's Canelo beaten that would stand a chance against Golovkin? People are always talking about on his sort of record that Canelo's beaten all these people, Golovkin hasn't. I mean, who would for the best name on his record is like Cotto. Cotto basically gave up, but he didn't want to fight Golovkin.
Cotto passed his prime, and Cotto was blown up
Yeah,
as well. Don't forget, like
yeah,
Cotto was actually when he fought far above his normal weight because
yeah,
they had a catch weight, didn't they? And
yeah.
yeah, Cotto's way past his prime. I don't know if Cotto's ever going to fight again. Has he fought since? I don't think Cotto's fought
He's supposed to be
since.
fighting, isn't he? He's supposed to be fighting. What's his name? James Kirkland.
Is he?
Yeah.
I haven't even followed Cotto since. I thought
Uh,
Cotto possibly had given it up
well,
since, but
yeah. I mean, it's not that interesting a fight, is it? I mean, it's not on an international level. Not for us, like here in England.
yeah.
Uh, Maybe if you're in Puerto Rico, it's probably a bit more interesting, or America. But yeah. So what about Canelo? What do you think he does that could be difficult for? What sort of chance do you think he has of beating Billy Joe Saunders? 'Cause I'm not just saying that Billy Joe Saunders is just going to like school him like Mayweather did or anything like that. Of course not.
Well,
He's got better since then.
that's the thing. I think the one thing we learnt
Obviously,
from
Saunders is Mayweather.
yeah, obviously not. But I think the one thing we learnt from the Khan fight was the fact that look, Khan's a great boxer, and obviously Canelo is a much bigger geezer, and like anyone that knows anything about boxing did predict that the KO was going to happen. But
Yeah,
I mean, anyone in America, everyone in America even had Canelo up before he knocked Khan out, whereas I was actually quite impressed by Khan. I had it kind of even Stevens and maybe
yeah,
Khan edging point, scoring punches and stuff like that. You definitely saw how Canelo can get exploited by the likes of Billy Joe Saunders, who is bigger
yeah.
than Khan for a start. He's not a blown up welterweight. He is a middleweight. He's going to punch harder than Khan naturally, even though Billy Joe Saunders isn't a hard puncher, but he
He's
is
a
a
much
good.
harder punch than Amir Khan, don't he?
Well,
Bearing
I'd
in
say
mind,
so as well. And he's got a better chin than Amir Khan. We'll also add that in
yeah,
there.
yeah.
I think we're both
Well, in fact,
agreeing
he's
on
just
that. So.
much he's much less erratic as well. He's much more measured in his approach.
Mm,
Amir Khan, I mean, to be fair, it was a good punch that Canelo landed on him. It wasn't just Amir Khan typical, just sort of diving in and then like coming out with his chin in the air. But still, like Billy Joe Saunders is a lot craftier, a lot slicker, and a lot more sort of defensively minded as well.
yeah. I mean, yeah, Billy Joe Saunders has the ability to get out of very difficult situations, and when he's in difficult situations, he's also very, very good at dealing with them. Like we can go back to the Chris Eubank Jr. fight. I don't think there's going to be anything similar to the Canelo fight, but in the last rounds where Chris Eubank was throwing big uppercuts and landing them or whatever, like Saunders showed that he's got a chin and he's able to sit there and hold himself out and possibly just clutch the last couple of rounds if he's ahead in a fight. But like you've heard a lot of people saying at the moment, like if this goes over to America, I mean, I can't see Saunders for a start knocking Canelo out, and secondly, I
No,
mean, unless he very convincingly wins, he's going to get robbed and he's going to get his title nicked off of him.
yeah.
And
Well, just looking at Canelo, you can tell he's tough. Like just the shape of him,
yeah,
you can think it's not going to be easy to like knock him. Not tough, but just solid. It's going to be difficult for someone like Saunders, who's not a big puncher, to knock him out. And also, I think the way Saunders fights, especially in America, I don't think it's sort of convincing enough for you to win that many rounds. I mean, I think personally, like he'll win the fight in fairness, but I think it'll be a robbery. I think it will be close-ish, but I think what Saunders really should do is exploit the fact that Canelo fights in spurts and just kind of draw him into it, and then use your feet. Sorry, like because he's got much quicker feet, much better movement to make him miss.
Sharper.
Then just sort of like beat him when you need to, when he's having a rest, basically, and then you can kind of avoid it. Because really, he fights, I don't know, like 2 minutes of every round if you're lucky,
Yeah,
and
agreed.
the rest
Yeah.
he's just sort of having a bit of a break. But he's got good head movement and he's got quite good upper body movement, but he's still pretty slow on his feet. I just think that Saunders to beat is going to need to be really, really convincing, and I don't think it's going to be convincing enough, especially with this super fight coming. They're not going to jeopardise that for Billy Joe Saunders.
No,
We've
I
seen what's happened with Canelo in the past. I
totally.
mean, he's had like every questionable decision has gone his way.
Yeah.
One judge even had it a draw against Mayweather. I mean, come on, you telling me that that's not like grounds for suspicion? I mean, yeah, ridiculous.
I mean, yeah. I think to be fair, I think Billy Joe Saunders is going to go over for a payday. I think they're going to pay him well.
Yeah. I,
And yeah,
yeah.
unless he's extremely lucky, it's going to be possible robbery or a KO by Canelo. But what I did want to ask you is how do you see the fight going? Do you think it's going to go 12 rounds, which Billy Joe Saunders is a specialist in doing, or do you think that well, Saunders is not going to knock out Canelo? We know that as a fact.
Ah. I don't think Canelo's going to knock out Saunders either. I think it will go 12 rounds.
You do?
I don't think Canelo's obviously like a decent puncher, but he's not like, he's not like knocking. He knocked out Amir Khan with one point. He knocked out Kirkland, who's off like a big break. Not particularly well prepared for the fight. He sort of knocked out stopped Liam Smith. He's obviously like a good puncher and he's got good combinations, but he's not gonna just sort of take you out with one punch. And Saunders is, as you say, got a good chin. He's got a good defence. He's quick on his feet and he's quite defensively minded. So I don't see Canelo knocking him out. So I'll be very, very surprised. I see it going 12 rounds, and I see Canelo winning by robbery. But to be honest with you, like really, this is going to sound very cynical on my part, but if I was Billy Joe Saunders, I'm thinking, right, I can sort of lose by robbery to Canelo and be the sort of moral victor, or I can just get knocked the fuck out by Golovkin. I'd
Just the
rather
right
do
choice.
that. Do you know what I mean? Well, yeah. Hopefully, like he's not thinking that, but do you know what I mean? If you've got those two choices, you fight Golovkin, he's going to knock you out. To be honest, you fight Canelo, it's going to go 12 rounds. They're probably going to rob you. Either way, you're going to lose your title. At least this way you do it with some dignity. You can be back another day. Do you know what I mean? That's what I would do.
You can earn a
That's
few
what.
mil. Yeah, I totally agree. And what I'll also add to that point, which I think's a very important point to add, is that he will earn a few mil off of that fight for a start, and then secondly, he's always got the Chris Eubank Jr. fight in the background. It's always there, and
Yeah.
if he were to lose any sort of fight, then he can always go back and fight Chris Eubank, and that is
Yeah.
UK pay-per-view fight, and
Yeah.
they would both earn millions. But Billy Joe Saunders comes across to me as a sort of person that, to spite Eubank Jr., wouldn't give him the opportunity to possibly
Yeah.
take a victory off of him, because he's, as he said in multiple interviews, he's earned the money that he's wanted to earn thus far. If he earns
Yeah.
2 or 3 million quid off of fighting Canelo, why would he go and fight Eubank Jr. with a possibility, and the massively larger possibility than the last time they fought, of losing the fight? I think
Yeah.
he's very spiteful, and I think he enjoys the fact of how much it winds up Chris Eubank Jr.
Yeah. Yeah.
That he beat him. So I think
Yeah.
I think Saunders, he makes me laugh. I mean, I've seen some really bad stuff from Saunders on YouTube and some of the stuff that he's done, but I do like him. I think he's a very funny
He's got
character.
character. I mean,
Yeah.
some of the stuff's a bit much for me. I've seen him like talk with that Dan Raphael, calling him like a paedophile, saying he's going to fuck his wife and all that. I mean, that's a bit much, like in my opinion.
Yeah.
But at the same time, he's quite funny, like sometimes with his sort of trash talking. But yeah, well, should we wrap this up now? Because we've obviously been on here a while. Do you want to give? So, what's your final prediction then for the Canelo Billy Joe Saunders?
Final prediction.
Yeah.
I think we're both going to agree. I think either Canelo knockout round 7 as a prediction, or 12 rounds robbery, and we'll give Canelo an 8-4. I think that's what's going to happen. One or the
Well,
other.
I've given I've sort of been mugging Canelo off quite a bit recently. If he knocks out Billy Joe Saunders, I'll give him a lot of credit.
Mm.
That would be a very good win for him. If he could do that, then I'll definitely give him a lot of credit for that. I don't see it, but well, yeah. All right, then, mate. Well, should we leave it there for today?
Sounds good. I think we've had a nice chat. I think obviously we've spoken a little bit earlier. Very interested in talking about a few upcoming fights in 2017.
Yeah, definitely.
So give me a shout for sure
Yeah,
when you
we'll
want to
do
talk
one soon,
about
like we
them.
said, with the Thurman, Garcia, a few other like big fights coming up. Yeah,
Yeah,
we'll make another one very soon.
yeah, that sounds absolutely perfect. So I'll let you wrap this one up anyway.
All right, mate. Thanks very much for coming on.
It's been a pleasure. Yeah, give me a shout when you next want to do a video. And
All right, mate.
yeah, very keen to talk about 2017. It's definitely looking like a good year for boxing for sure.
Yeah, yeah. All right, then, mate. Thank you very much,
Right,
and
cheers,
thank
mate.
you a lot for listening. See ya.
Cheers. See you later.